Hello everyone. Welcome to Around the World.
Welcome. Today we will study Russia, Ukraine and Serbia. Let's get started. Russia is the largest country in the world, for it covers over 1/7 of the Earth's land surface. In the far north, there are tribes who are like the Eskimos of North America, living by hunting, trapping and fishing. In the extreme south, the people of one republic resemble the Mongolians, those of another republic the Persians who live across their border. By far the largest group, however, are the European Russians, who are Slavs and are related to other peoples of Eastern Europe. The Ukraine in the south of European Russia is rich in minerals. The republic, more than any other, has enabled Russia to rise quickly among the industrial nations of the world. Near the river Donets, a tributary of the Don, she has the richest coal field in Russia. At Kryvyi Rog, she has the richest iron mines. The miners of these areas are producing enormous quantities of coal and iron ore for fracture into steel. A great iron and steel factory has arisen in the southern Ukraine. One of the chief needs of the Russian people was for modern farming equipment. Much of the steel thus goes to the famous tractor works of Kharkov and Volgograd. By using tractors and other machinery, the Russians have brought their farming methods up to date and increased their crops. More steel goes into the manufacture of locomotives, lorries, motor cars and ships, which were needed to improve the transport system. Oil to drive all this machinery comes chiefly from the oil fields of Azerbaijan in the Caspian Sea and south of the Ural Mountains. The Russians are also using the water power of their great rivers to manufacture electricity. They have built many power stations in the past, one of the largest in the world being near Dnipropetrovsk on the river Dnieper. In the past, Russians were ill-clothed because they were so poor. Many new textile and clothing factories have been built in Moscow, Ivanovo, and other cities where cotton and linen goods are made from Russian cotton and flax. Fur clothing is made to protect people against the bitterly cold winters. Vast quantities of boots and shoes are manufactured from Russian leather in Kiev. Moscow, the capital, has grown very fast, and large new blocks of flats have been built to provide people with homes. The inhabitants of Moscow are very proud of their new buildings and also of their modern underground railway. All Russian visitors to Moscow like to see the Red Square, where great parades are held. Beside the Red Square is the Kremlin, an ancient fortress which was once the headquarters of the Russian government. While the Russians have been opening new mines, power stations, factories and workshops, they have not forgotten their agriculture. In the past, the Russian peasants were poor and ignorant, and their farming methods were backward. They have been brought together into groups so that the members of each group can work on large collective farms. There are tens of thousands of these collective farms in Russia, chiefly on the fertile grasslands or steppes. Each farm is 1,000 acres or more in area, 80 times as large as the average Danish farm. The farmer is paid for his work, but he also has a small patch of land on which he can produce extra crops. On the huge fields of these collective farms, it is possible to use the most up-to-date machinery. The Russian factories supply the farmers with plows, tractors, harvesters and other implements that they require. European Russia alone is so vast that the farmers can produce a great variety of crops. In the cool farmlands of the north, rye, potato and flax are important. The chief food of the peasants is in this region, in the rather sour, black bread made from rye. In many towns of the Ukraine, the wheat is milled into flour for wheaten bread, while sugar is produced from the sugar beet. The Russians are very fond of tea, though they do not prepare it in the English way. They make the tea in a large urn known as a samovar, which is usually made of copper. Their farmer grows much of the tea on the hill slopes beside the Black Sea. In this southern region, the farmers also produce crops such as rice, cotton, grapes, oranges and tobacco. Forests stretch across northern European Russia from the border with Finland to the Ural Mountains. East of the Ural Mountains, these forests continue across Asiatic Russia to the Pacific Ocean, and these are the greatest area of forest land in the world. distances are so enormous and travel is so difficult that few Russians have explored far into the Siberian forests. Thousands of square miles of the forest have no inhabitants at all. The few small towns stand beside the great rivers. Igarka, near the mouth of the Yenisei, is one of the most important. Like others, it has grown up as a port and a center of the timber industry. The Russian lumbermen are working mainly along the rivers, for they can float the logs down to the Arctic coasts. Then the timber is carried by ship to St. Petersburg during the 3 months of summer when the sea is not frozen. Other men who work in the forest, besides the lumbermen, are the hunters and trappers. They seek fur-bearing animals such as the squirrel, fox, sable and otter, sending their skins to St. Petersburg and other towns in the fur trade. Winters are very cold in Russia, and that the people have to wear fur clothing. South of the forest lands is a large area of grasslands similar to those in European Russia. Here are more large collective farms, especially in western Siberia, where the farmers now produce wheat. In the drier grasslands, the Russians raise sheep for their wool. They also keep large numbers of karakul sheep, the skins of which are valuable for clothing and are always usually known as Persian lambskins. On the grasslands of southern Siberia, many of the people are still nomads or wanderers. They keep horses, camels and sheep and live very largely on the meat and milk that they provide them. They are constantly moving across the plains in search of fresh pasture. The horses and camels carry the wooden frames and felt covering for their tents, as well as their other possessions. The men are very famous horsemen, and the children learned to ride when they were very young. Seldom do they speak from the outside world to strangers. Strangers whom they meet are usually merchants with a camel caravan, perhaps bringing rice or tea from China. The Russian government has persuaded some of the nomads to settle down in villages, but many of them prefer their wandering life. In Siberia, the greatest change has been the rise of the new industries. Coal was discovered in the Kuznetsk basin near the Trans-Siberian Railway. This long railway links Moscow and St. Petersburg in the west with Vladivostok in the far east. Coal from the Kuznetsk basin is thus exchanged by rail with iron ore from the Ural Mountains, and a great steel industry has arisen in both areas. A railway hundreds of miles long was built partly so the Siberian wheat could be sent to feed the cotton growers of Turkestan. Such changes have been taking place quickly in Russia. They are helping the people to produce for themselves more and more of the things that they need. And that's the end of the Russian video. Please leave a like and comment on the video of what you thought. Then subscribe to my channel to find new videos and future videos. See you soon.